Definitely want to talk to you about your decision to leave the US and where you are. You mentioned you're in Mexico City now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that. And what's
Yeah.
that related to? Just tell me, how did you
How I
come
got
about
here.
that? And then
Yeah.
we'll get into a little bit more about it.
Okay, so this is what I'm gonna say. So to anybody that's listening, watching, whatever medium that you're taking this in, I'm going to guide you to some places because it's a lot of stories that I'm gonna just be like, and then this happened. You're gonna be like, girl, what? And they need to be unpacked. But I've unpacked them in different places, right?
Yeah.
So first is my website is kimberlandjackson.com. I have a blog there where I have written about a lot of these things. I'm redoing all of that, but that blog is gonna stay intact because it really talks about a lot of the backstories of why I say some of these things. I also starting a podcast that I didn't know was a podcast at the time, but it has now kind of developed into a podcast of telling some of these backstories. For instance, like I mentioned, I couldn't go home. So I recorded some months ago about why I can't go home and what that's about, right? So there are places when you connect to me that you can find the actual like meat and potatoes of what happened in these things.
Yeah,
So
and
having said that,
Kimberland, just a FYI, and for those that's listening, I will have links and your information, social media, your whatever you give me, I will have it either show up on the screen, and also I will include it in my description, so it'll be there. So what you give me, like the Kimberland Jackson.com, I'll have that on there,
perfect.
and then any references of your podcast, just send me the links or the information. I'll point people there.
Perfect. So I had left off like in my career somewhere around 2017, right? And I talked to you about being in this position of student success coach. So I'm gonna kind of like take y'all through how I left Tampa, how I ended Mexico. So or leaving the US. So in 2017, I told you I had started at that school at Memorial, and we were getting a new principal, Miss Gilliard. So talking with Miss Gilliard, I was very much like excited that she was going to be coming. The previous principal, it was just a lot. And I had been there mentoring, so I already knew like the scope of what it was, and it was time for a change. So every year we would have this breakfast that we called the turnaround breakfast, where we would take one of our students who had drastically improved for the year. Again, a student who was not used to being celebrated because they was always in trouble, now got on the right track. So we would do this big breakfast with the district. So in that year, somewhere around March, April 2017, I take my students to the turnaround breakfast, and now we are getting a new administration at our school, and I meet our school board member, and I ask our school board member, I say to her, I'm like, hey, so she's a young Black woman, and I'm trying to decide if I should say her name or not. If y'all Google me, it'll come up. So I meet her, and I'm like, hey, we need your help. Like our school, we were a D school at the time. We had to turn it around, or else someone was going to come over and take over the school. So I was like, we need your help. Like, you're a school board member, right? She's like, yeah. And I was like, we need your help. We're getting a new administration. Like, we need you to come and like remove some of the red tape. Like, we need you. Oh yeah, I will absolutely come. Absolutely, positively, absolutely come. She did not come. So she did all of that talking, didn't come. Then she wrote, there was an article that was written. So I told you our school was in danger of being taken over. So there was an article that was written about that. I'm trying not to drop names because there's a lot. And I'm going through it quickly. So there was an article that was written about the situation of there being some schools that may be getting taken over. And the school board member was quoted in the article as saying, I don't know why we're having all this controversy back and forth about the contract because our kids aren't getting what they need anyway. And I took offense to that because I just told you in my position some of the things that I was doing, but I'm gonna run it down to you right quick. So by the time I left that school, not only did we earn our C, not only did we acquire community partners and things of that nature, you came because I had my mentoring group, right? So we established those types of things. We established a food pantry. We established a clothes closet at our school. We established a laundromat at our school. There were times that we were taking home students' clothes to wash at our houses. So we doing stuff, sis. What is you talking about?
Right.
And
And
how
that's
dare
above
you?
and beyond budgets or things that what teacher administrators do or even you hear about.
We out here
That
working, sis, and we are the only secondary school on your list of schools that is in this correction status, and you never came, even though you told me you was coming. But then you got the nerve to be in the newspaper talking about the kids ain't getting what they need. So that happened on Facebook, and I commented, and I was like, it would be really nice for us to be graced with your presence, like you promised. And I wish that people would stop talking around us and actually talk to us about the things that we're doing. When I did that, I am and have always been an advocate. Like I have a very strong sense of justice, which has to do with my neurodivergence that I'm understanding. But we about to talk about what's right, and what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. Like we not doing the foolishness, right? So I commented and I was like, I wish that you would have came, like you said. What I expected from that was one of three things. I expected for her to either ignore me, to direct me to her secretary, or to accept accountability and be like, you're right, I'll be there on Monday. None of that happened. She caught an attitude and she went off on me, like for real, for real. So she was basically like, I got this many schools. This is the vibe I want you to get, right? I got 75 schools, okay, and you shouldn't be waiting on me anyway to do stuff, right? Like it was that type of vibe. And I was very much like, clutch pearls, ma'am, you are an elected official. I need you to understand you work for me, right? So very long story short, again, there are articles, interviews, records, all types of things you connect to me that can give the rest of this. But long story short, she wound up deleting the things that she was saying to me. Then she took selected screenshots of what she said and sent an email to my principal, to the chief of schools, and to the area superintendent, and basically said, y'all need to do something about her. Now, what she didn't know is that I realized that she was deleting stuff. So I was screenshot and I had everything that she deleted. So she sent a little email and thought that she was about to get me together. So then I get to school on Monday. Miss Gilliard sitting in the office with the professional standards rubric out. Now, I told you what I do, right? I told you I evaluate teachers. I'm very familiar with the rubric. I know what's in it. I know it backwards, forwards, up, under, around, and through. I know what you think is about to happen, ma'am, but I have a binder here with 22 pages of screenshots. Where would you like us to start? So I flip through. So she says,
I love it.
oh, that's not what she told me happened. Yeah, I know. I know that's not what she told you, but this is what happened. And here's the evidence to prove it. So she said, well, what you gonna do? I said, she owes me an apology or else I'm going to the newspaper. Long story short, she did not apologize. I went to the newspaper. 2 articles were written. One was written from an objective standpoint. One was an op-ed, baby, and it was a mess. And she cut the fool over the entire internet school board member acted an ass. You hear me? And I said what I said. I'm not the type of person, I'm not gonna keep going back and forth with you on the internet, but I am gonna advocate for these babies that we out here breaking our backs for, right? I ain't say nothing else. Miss Gilliard's ask to me was, don't make it a distraction because we still trying to earn our seat. So I didn't say nothing else. I said what I said, the newspaper articles got written, whatever. I didn't say nothing else. So over that time, I worked another year at the school, and then the school year of 2019-2020, I decided that was going to be my last year at Hillsborough County in Memorial. I was actually going to get married at the time, and I was like, I'm moving, I'm leaving, and this all y'all got left for me. I wind up, the school year was very different. It was, again, God made things uncomfortable. I was approached by the organization that was going to take over the school. Now, we earned our seat, right? So we were safe, but there were some schools in the district that did not. So the organization still came in and took over these schools. So that organization reached out to me and was like, we need you. We have a math and science position. We need you, right? So at first I was like, no, I already told the school that this is my last year here. I have my mentoring program. I have my girls. Like I had girls that were waiting since 6th grade to be in 8th grade chosen women girls group. Okay. They've been waiting on this. I cannot leave them, right? So I was like really committed to that. I wound up taking the time off that I would have had taken off if I was going to get married. And then I came back and I walked into the cafeteria and I'm talking chaos. You hear me? And what was so crazy is that I had been talking to them about these things like proactive procedures because we had gotten a new group of students. Like it was all kind of stuff that was happening. And I was like, we might want to think through this. We might want to put this in place. We might. And everybody was acting like I didn't know what I was talking about. So I come back after my time off and I'm standing in the cafeteria and I was like, y'all got me fucked up. I'm not doing this. I done already tried to warn y'all about this and y'all ain't listening. I'm not doing this. So I called the organization. I'm like, bet, I'll come. So I go over to the organization. I started, my last day at the school was November 8th, 2019. I started with the organization. I took a week off and then I started that next Monday. So, okay, I'm out here. I'm doing all the meetings, all the things where they're like, Kimberland, we are so happy to have you, girl. Your reputation precedes you. We just so happy that Florida is taken care of. Hallelujah. So that's Monday through Friday. All right. Friday, I had a meeting with the team, and they're like, introduce me to everybody, all of that. Well, something else that happened that Friday after I got off of work is somebody had reached out to me about the situation that happened with the school board member. And they had asked me to talk about it in years previous. And I was like, I'm not doing that because I'm still at the school. Well, now I'm not at the school. So let's talk. So I do an interview that Friday night, and I share the 22 pages of screenshots. I share everything that happened. That Monday, I get a phone call from my new job, and they're like, hey, this is so-and-so from HR. We also have so-and-so on the phone. Now, I was expecting a call because we were supposed to set up health insurance and like all that kind of stuff, right? This is the Monday before Thanksgiving. So Hillsborough County schools are closed, but we were still working until Wednesday, right? So I wake up, I'm like, let me get my printer set up. You know what I mean? I'm about to be productive. So I get the call, and they're like, hey, this so-and-so from HR and so-and-so on the phone too. And I was like, hey, how you doing? And they were like, great. So you have a clause in your contract that states that we can release you with or without notice or with or without cause. And we're going to exercise that clause today. So today will be your last day. I had just gotten fired. And the logical conclusion is that after that interview that I did about what the school board member tried to do to me, that all of a sudden I became a liability to some kind of way. So that happened. So now I ain't got no job. So that's Monday before Thanksgiving, 2019. December 12th, 2019, my dog died. So I'm just kind of sitting in the house. Early 2020, my former supervisor, so the director of professional development, calls me. In the meantime of this, I've done a radio interview. There's a GoFundMe. Like, there's people know about what has happened in the community, right? I'm also getting phone calls from schools and people. And one of those calls I got was from a principal at a school. She and I had done professional development together in the past. And she was like, Kimberland, I don't know if you remember me. We worked together doing XYZ training. And I just want to let you know, I have a job in my school. So if you want to come and take this job, like, it is yours, sis. I know what kind of person you are. Like, you just let me know. And I said to her, I appreciate that, but I don't feel like that's what God is telling me to do right now. And I know that sounds crazy. I don't feel clearance. So she was like, I completely understand. You just let me know. If you need a place to come, you are always welcome here. So I thanked her for that. So maybe the next month, so that was like December of 2019. The next month, somewhere January, early February, I get a call from the director of PD, and she was like, what you doing? And I was like, girl, watching Power, because that's how I was spending my time, because I didn't have a dog anymore. So I wasn't going outside. These were in the early days of where they were just starting to talk about COVID, but the world hadn't shut down yet. And I have embraced the fact, actually just last night, that I am a germaphobe and probably have some OCD. And I think a lot of that comes from being a scientist and having grown plates of bacteria. Like, I have a very clear understanding, but anyway.
Thanks for
So
education.
yeah, right. So director of PD reaches out, and she was like, I have some money that I need to spend, and I want to spend it on you. So she was like, I have an opportunity for you to go and consult at a school doing social emotional learning, trauma informed practices, restorative practices, all the things that you love, all the things that are your jam, over at the school where the principal had called me and offered me the job. So I get over to the school. So they contracted with me, and I worked there the end of January until everything shut down, on helping her with all kinds of stuff. Like, we did a lot while I was there in that time. So I was able to do that. COVID happens. World shuts down. I still ain't got no job. So I'm looking for jobs, but it's not happening. Florida is getting crazy. Everything that's happening, all the Black Lives Matters protests, I'm just seeing like Florida's nuts. I got to get out of here. Like, I don't know what this is, and I can't. I actually did a live, and I was like, I feel like Harriet Tubman. I feel like I'm supposed to be going somewhere to prepare a place for people. I know that probably sounds crazy, but this is what I feel, right? I did a live about it. Somewhere around July of 2019, I decide I'm going to leave Florida and I'm going to move to Boston. So that's where the guy I was supposed to marry, that's where he lived. And he was like, just come here, pack up my shit. Whatever fits, whatever doesn't, we roll out, right? So I get to Boston, and I wind up getting this job with Pennsylvania Department of Education. It wasn't the Department of Education directly. It was this organization that's called the Intermediate Unit, but they work on behalf of the Department of Education. So now I'm working for the state of Pennsylvania in school improvement as a school climate and culture specialist. There's copious amounts of recordings about this. I'm gonna just say it was the most traumatic experience of my entire life. You talk about microaggressions, outright racism. outright understanding of how many people are sitting in rooms to actively make sure that the things that we're doing for Black and brown children to succeed, that it fails. They are actively working against it. They're sitting in meetings where we're coming up with solutions, and then they go to another meeting to undo all the stuff that we just said we wanted to do. And I really got an inside look into that, and it broke me from a place that I am still recovering because I knew, like, you always know stuff is up, but once you get into the room and understand the magnitude of the stuff that is up and the level of evil that is operating in spaces that are supposed to be for the betterment of children. And when we're talking about school improvement, again, we're talking about Black, brown, poor children, like it was a lot. So I wound up depressed, anxiety, on medication, like all of that. And the same guy that I was going to marry told me that I should leave. He was like, you need to go take a trip somewhere. I feel like you need to get out the house. I was living in Pennsylvania. It was cold. I already told you I don't like snow. Okay. So I wasn't going outside. Okay. I'm just in my house. So he was like, I really feel like you need to take a trip. And he said, why don't you go to Medellin, Colombia? And, that was his safe place where he would go. So he was like, why don't you go there and just take a week and just see if you feel different? I had just turned 40. So I was like, I feel like I want to do something this year to scare myself. So I did. So I took this solo trip to Medellin, and I was there for a week, and I met these women on a tour, and they were living there. And I was like, how? And they were like, do you have a passport? Girl, pack your shit and get up. Why? Why are you still in the US? For what? For what reason? Now, I had been working with the Department of Education, so I had been working remotely all year. I had not gone into an office at all. So they were like, why are you in cold ass Pennsylvania? For what? And I was like, I don't know. So I talked to them that day, and then my experience in Medellin, I was just like, why am I there? So I got back to Pennsylvania. I talked to my therapist. I was like, I'm moving. I'm leaving. I'm going to Colombia. So she was like, oh, I guess the trip went well. And I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. So I sold all my stuff, my car, my everything. The only reason I didn't go to Colombia first is because the COVID numbers had gone up. So this was 2021. So I left October 2021, and the numbers in Medellin had risen. And the only other language that I have a little piece of was Spanish. So I was like, what other Spanish speaking countries might I be able to go to? And because I'm a little rebellious, and because I am very sensitive to propaganda, I said to myself, how is Mexico, the country that is directly to our south, and we know so little about the country except for all of the biased things that are being said about Mexican people? I want to go and see for myself. So I went to Playa del Carmen. I spent 3 months in Playa del Carmen. I don't like the beach. I've never liked sand. It's not my thing. So that's pretty much all there is to do with Playa del Carmen. So I was like, I don't want to do this. So I had been wanting to come to Mexico City, and I had heard like about Mexico City. And also I was wanting to learn Spanish. And I'm like, I will never learn Spanish in Playa del Carmen because it's so geared towards the US. And I didn't leave the US to go somewhere to be in the US. Like I left the US to get away. So I was like, I want to know where real Mexico is. So I put myself on a bus, girl, 21 hours to Mexico City.
OMG, I didn't know
I
how
know.
you got there.
On a bus. And I don't know why I did that, outside of the fact that I said to myself, I wanted to know what a regular Mexican person's experience would be like, not somebody with privilege. I'm very aware of my privilege as a US citizen in a country like Mexico or Colombia. And I just was like, I want to know how they would travel. Like if they needed to uproot their life, what would they do? So I got on the bus and I figured it out. And one of the things that it taught me, not that I hadn't seen it already, but just the kindness of Mexican people. So when I was living in Playa del Carmen, my Spanish was like, hola, ¿cómo está? Me llamo Kimberland. Yo necesito ayuda. It was
Right.
very, very basic.
That's me right there.
And I was terrified to speak because I hadn't mastered the rules of the language, and I really didn't understand the accent and all that kind of stuff. But I knew enough to try to figure something out. And if I don't, Google Translate to the rescue, right? So I get to the bus station and I walk up to the bus attendant or whatever, and I was like, hola, yo tengo un boleto para la Ciudad de México. I have a ticket to go to Mexico City. ¿Dónde está el autobús? Where is the bus? So the man was like, sit down. So he tells
Over
me
there,
to sit
ma'am.
down. Yeah, he was like, sit down, girl. So he tells me to sit down. So I'm watching buses like coming the whole time. And I'm like, is that my bus? And he's like, ma'am, sit down. So I get on the bus, and we stopped a few times. And every time we would stop, that bus driver made sure I was on that bus. Every time he was like, La Ciudad de Mexico. And I was like, see. every time, right? 21 hours. So I get to Mexico City. I figure out, I get an Airbnb, like I figured out, and I fell in love with the city. And Mexico City is very much like New York in that it is ginormous. It's actually twice the size of New York, but there's a vibe for every single type of person. And I just really liked that. The food is phenomenal. It reminds me a lot of New Orleans because it is so cultured and there's music and it's just so much. Like you get a real sense of what Mexico is like being in Mexico City. So I lived here for 15 months and then life got busy. Things felt busy in my mind and I felt like I needed some quiet. I remembered Medellin and I remembered that that was my original place that I wanted to go. I said to myself, if I book these tickets and everything goes smoothly, then I know that God is giving me the clearance to go to Medellin. So that happened. So December 29th of last year, I moved to Medellin and I lived in Medellin and it is very different from Mexico City. It's really like the movie Encanto. If you have seen it on Disney, it is very green, very lush. Again, Colombian people are just so kind and helpful. It really feels like a place of healing.
Mm.
So I spent that time there, and this is going to seem like a big, like part two bomb drop. But what I'm going to say is in the time that I was living in Mexico and in the time I was living in Colombia, I went back to the US twice. I went to the US in September to October of 2022, and it was supremely traumatic. And I didn't realize how that was living with me until I went to the US again in July of 2023. And it was equally as traumatic. And then I wound up having a nervous breakdown. That was July 25th of this year. And I've been in recovery trying to rectify my relationship with the US. It's very different to be outside of the US, watching the things that are happening in the US, safe from the things that are happening in the US versus living in the US and that being your daily experience. And I often find myself highly concerned for those of you who continue to live in the US. It is disturbing to watch the things that are happening, and it, because of the way that my heart works and because of the way that my brain works, it is just like this constant concern, this constant weighing on my mind and on my spirit of what is happening to our people and the impact that is having on us and the ways that we are coping. Again, back to that mental health advocacy, I've become highly concerned with people winding up where I was, people that are in corporate America and experiencing the types of things that I experienced and the PTSD that comes from that. That is what keeps me out of the country. This last time after I went for a really good reason. I got to meet Dr. Joy of Therapy for Black Girls, and I interviewed her and she wrote a new book. And it was like such an amazing experience, but it was also really, really traumatic. While I was in the US, I saw a man get arrested this past time in July. I saw how horribly we treat people whose English is not their first language. It was just a lot and it's heartbreaking. So I've been trying to process that in the middle of several active genocides. And like, it's a lot. So it keeps me in a space of trying to figure out how I feel about the US and also helping people who have reached the point of wanting to escape to be able to escape, and insert back the Harriet Tubman concept that we do have the ability as Black people to live a life that is more free than what is offered in the US. I do not think about the fact that I'm Black when I'm in Mexico or when I'm in Colombia. It is not a constant. I no longer walk into places counting Black people. I know, because that's a way for us to figure out whether we're safe or not in the US, right? I no longer do that. I don't walk around with this burden of anything might go left at any time because you are a Black person. And it's hard to explain to someone who has not experienced that. But what I know is every single person that I have invited into one of these countries to experience it has felt it. They felt it at a core level and they're like, and it's wild. So I'm currently going through that process of rectifying how I want to continue to interact with the United States and what it looks like for me to honor myself and to honor my mental health and honor the trauma I have experienced and the trauma that our people have experienced living in the United States of America.
Yeah, you hit on several points that I know my head is probably like a bobblehead, so I know I can't edit that out because I'm like disagreeing a lot because when I accepted an opportunity that was outside the United States, it was similar to you. I was getting laid off, and that was one of the things that it landed in my lap while I was like figuring out how was I going to put my life together,
Yeah.
and I had a once in a life opportunity to go to Denmark, and they
Mm.
needed my services. I competed against people that was across the globe, and my brown behind female go and, save the day in so many words and help a bank overcome some horrific audit findings. And
Mm.
my words, everything that I said was like gospel, wasn't second guess.
You were
And
taken as the expert that you are.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like you said, I thought I was gonna stick out like a sore thumb, but I felt my most comfortable.
Yep.
I felt free. I did not want to come back. I was
Yep.
still to this day looking to see if, on that list of expertise, can I go to this country and live
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of my life? And what keeps me grounded here, my family. However, planes work just fine. And
They
for
sure
most
do.
of my life, I've been away. So what is telephone still works.
Yes, they do.
Zoom
Sure
still
do.
works, or what have you. So what's the excuse now? And
Yeah.
I may be soliciting your services on, because personally I have some things and I think I'm at that point similar to you. Sure, things happen, flashing neon lights and everything is like thrust,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
happening. And so I know today, this is my time to do that. And one other thing that I really appreciate you mentioning was the PTSD. It's not just tied to military veterans or what have
Right.
you. It is trauma that we all have, encountered in our lives, and we handle it differently. Sometimes we don't handle it at all. Sometimes we suppress it. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't pop up into these random moments, and then you
Yep.
freak out or you have all these other things happen. You're like, why is this happening to me? You're crying for no reason, all this other stuff. And it's because of a trauma that we have suppressed so long. I feel the same way as you, but I'm in the US, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
always looking out and right now in the midst of designing my own life
Mm-hmm.
to be more mobile and virtual and etc. So I truly appreciate the transparency on how you felt when you came back to the US, not just once, twice. And after the third time, you know what they say, you keep doing the same thing, expecting different results, finding your safe space,
Yeah.
finding a place where you feel whole, at
Yes.
least to the point where you can heal and protect yourself.
Yeah. Because
And
they say
sometimes
we're
it is.
supposed to have calm nervous systems. That's what I heard, is that
Yeah,
we're supposed to have calm
that's why
nervous
we
systems.
sleep. You rest to heal, to get better. Your body does things. So if you got 5 hours of sleep, let your body rest for 5 hours of sleep and rebuild itself. Sometimes you need 8 to 10 hours. Sometimes your rest could be, not the physical sleep itself. It could be a physical, distance where you are allowing yourself to kind of get new air. The
Mm-hmm.
sun is hitting differently.
Yeah.
The earth is always spinning and etc. So I truly appreciate that, and definitely talking about how you got to the point of deciding to leave the US and then even coming back to the US and having situations present itself. And that's why I personally don't watch TV. I control what comes into my space, what comes into my bedroom, what I listen to,
Yeah.
radio. I control that. I have a playlist. Even on social media,
Same.
I unfollow. I
Mm-hmm.
keep them as friends, but I
Mm-hmm.
unfollow a lot of people because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to ingest that by mistake.
Correct.
And so I'm controlling my environment the best way I know how to right now in the US in my
Yeah.
current situation until I'm able to make my exit. I am actively looking to exit, and I didn't wanna raise my kid here, but I
Mm.
ended up raising my kid here. So now I'm looking out for me. I wanna spend the rest of my life enjoying life.
Yeah, peace.
Yeah, and even when
Yeah.
I went to Costa Rica, I took my shoes off and I grounded myself and I played in the water. Just walked and it was like so I had personally a spiritual moment. It opened my eyes. I cried a lot. I cried a lot because I was divorcing a lot of things or
Yes.
dealing with a lot of things that I
Yes.
know, just causing harm to me as a person. And I didn't realize that I was living in somebody else's shadows. So that's a
Mhm.
whole, we could talk
I
again.
know, and that's what I was just about to tell you. So I actually, my best friend and I are starting a podcast. We don't necessarily have a name for it right now. Right now, we're kind of playing with like heal that shit, but it's about the
Maybe we should
healing.
vote on it. Nah.
No, we are going to have people on it because my personal platform that I developed out of all this is called Minding My Black Ass Business
I
because
saw that. That's
that's all.
right.
That's all we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to do is mind our black ass business. And sometimes we have to take control of that, right? To be able to do that because the US is not going to all of a sudden lay out the red carpet for us, right? So what does that look like? I also call myself a professional frolicker, right? Because frolicking has that lighthearted, joyful spirit. And I frolic when I am in Mexico. Like today, I want to go to the park a little later. Like I am frolicking, I'm blowing bubbles. I am getting back into healing that inner child because one of the things that you talked about with this healing journey, this is not easy. And I think that society and commercialism has made us think that healing is massages and bubble baths. But that crying that you're talking about that you did, the releasing of trauma and releasing all of that negativity from our body is something that is so needed. And we don't understand how much is in our body until we get to a place where you are free to release it. And yes, it feels amazing, but also it's hard because then you have to actually rectify how you got there. And it's because of the environment, right? So back to thinking about our brains. How much stuff have I suppressed? How much stuff have I been pushing down? Girl, I'm a master. I'm trying to break out of it. I was a master compartmentalizer. I had so much shit on the damn shelf boxed up. And through all of this, through everything that happened with me going back to the US and like doing all of that and rectifying that, then all of my childhood trauma started falling out the box. So now everything is just spilling out the box every goddamn where. Do you hear me? Everywhere.
Yeah.
So that led to my brain shutting down. This is too much. Nobody is meant to go through this much trauma and continue just keeping it pushing like y'all keep telling us we're about to do. So one of my missions right now is really helping people to understand that this healing journey is serious, is necessary, but you also have to make sure that you're prepared because it is not fun. Like I don't even know how else to put it. It's not fun. It is depending on the types of life, the type of life that you've lived and the types of traumas that you may have experienced. It's a lot. It's a lot. Is it worth it? Yes. Is there joy and sunshine on the other side of it? Absolutely. But the process is tough.
And it doesn't look pretty all the
It's
time.
not at all. And I feel like when I say transparency is really important to me, that's the part that I feel like we have to talk about, the not pretty. Because people will say that, but what does that mean? Right. So, for instance, like I got put back on my medication. I had successfully taken myself off medication when I was in Colombia. I was healing, I was doing the things, right. And then going back to the US. So, back on my medication. But what I did realize more this time is that it's hard for me to feel, which is weird because I was doing so much feeling over the past year. And now I'm on medication. And I'm like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like how it feels to not be able to feel because yes, the feelings were consuming, but I was also feeling and I wasn't allowed to feel for most of my life. So I don't know that I want to be in a position to not feel, so it's stuff like that, like trying to unpack all of that and really figure out where is your place of joy and peace and how do you find that calm nervous system? What does that look like for you? But going into it blind is not fun. So I try to think about all the things that I wish somebody had told me so that people who are like, okay, I'm going going to tackle this, that they start to prepare. And what I would say to people who are like wanting to embark on this healing journey, one thing at a time. You cannot tackle everything at one time. You just can't. And but also like the dots connect together. So healing here can also help with healing there. But don't try to take everything out the box at the same time. It don't work. It's not good. Don't do it. Don't be like me.
Oh,
One thing at a time. But yeah, it's been interesting. So she and I, my best friend and I were like, we really need to talk about this, and we really need to create a safe and transparent place for healing so that people don't feel alone, because it is also incredibly lonely to go through healing. It's incredibly lonely. Girl, we got so many new letters behind our name. I'm talking
I know.
ADHD, neurodivergence, PTSD, depression, anxiety. Like there are so
I know.
many new understandings as adults. So then rectifying that, how did I live 42 years of life and y'all didn't know that I was a little different? Like what? Right. But it was like the whole let me beat you into suppression and let me, and I get that a lot of that comes from our history. It was for safety and the connection back to slavery and all that. I get that. But also the damage that we have done to each other and to generations by trying to adhere to white supremacy culture is like it has broken us. I feel that this is my small contribution. I'm saying small, but I know it's big because it's my whole life. But this is my
Right.
small contribution to helping us to truly heal and be able to tap into the things that we deserve. We built an entire country and have gotten nothing but trauma from it. Y'all can have it. That's fine. Let me go over here and find my joy and my peace and how God allowed me to be. And let me create these healing communities so at least my people can come to a place where they feel safe.
And I love that because that's the same thing that I've said. I was like, I want to buy a piece of land, build little tiny homes, or have RVers and van lifers and nomads to come and stay. And that's what actually one of my good friends
Yes.
and I have talked about. We said was going to come up with a Google Drive and dump all the
Listen.
research or what have you, because I want to exit and I'm ready to exit. And I need people that are like-minded, like me,
Yes.
to get into that space. And which is why I'll go ahead and say it. I know it's going to be, this going to probably go, I'm walking on faith. I'm going to put it out there.
Come on, face up.
Personally speaking, I'm going through a process and I am preparing myself to be a corporate escapee. I'm doing things to make sure that I am designing my life the way it will be suitable for me.
Yes.
And I have control over my destiny because I'm
Yes.
tired of being controlled, because it comes back from as a child.
Yeah.
It comes back to
Yes.
what they teach you in school.
Yeah,
They teach
girl.
you to be workers. They teach you how to
Follow directions
follow
and don't
directions.
ask questions.
And then I went to a HBCU like you and learned some things, and it's still, I felt ill prepared for corporate America because
Mm-hmm.
it's not what I was taught. We did talk about things, but it
But
was
not
totally
for real.
different. It was really different. And so for that, I've been like just going with the flow and adapting and adopting and, becoming this thing, this person that, and I'm kind of losing myself. And then I find myself in glimpse and I'm like, who are you really?
Girl.
And so, just going through that. But I want to buy land, get my peoples, who they are, get
Yep.
them on the land. We put our monies together and we live our lives the way I've even thought about denouncing my citizenship because
Same.
I've done research on that. I just been trying to figure out what country I can go to and stay, and
Yeah.
don't mind doing, 30 days or 60 days or 90 days somewhere else. I'll consider that my vacation to go somewhere to until you have enough money to buy into your
Yep.
citizenship. So
Yep.
it's just been a lot. And so
Wow.
this has been, just refreshing. But I will say, being that I am here in this mindset and going back to keeping things simple, you mentioned some things that you do. I also do some things. I jump and shake, because
Yes. Yes.
tension and etc. I
Yes.
touch, and get tension out of my body and shake it
Mhm.
out. And those are things that I have to do to just go,
Yeah.
keep going, be positive, tackle whatever, shake off whatever it is. I know we say we're gonna let things roll off our backs and like, a duck or what have you, but it sticks.
Yeah. Yeah.
All leaves residue.
Yeah.
You can be a duck and let it roll off your back, but you still have it. It's in your feathers. That's why I love my hair cut, is because
Yeah.
especially when it comes to certain things, shaving my head is methodical. It releases, it's a process. It gives me a new beginning. When my hair follicles finally come up, is it safe? Is it good stuff? If not, I'm gonna shave it back down
I
and keep
love
it
that.
going. So it's symbolic and it's
Yeah.
therapeutic. It's these tools that I have been adopting over time, just like you have adopted things that works for you. And we're here to use our platforms the way we are supposed to. We are
Correct.
messengers. We are doing it in our different ways. And people, I'm even looking at how people learn, going back to my academic studies on how people learn, so going with the visuals and going
Mhm.
with the audio and going
Mhm.
with text and all this other stuff to reach people, and maybe somebody can hear this message and they can relate, and then we're people,
Yeah.
we establishing our community and etc. So I hope, and I never knew, I don't know how my interviews go or what we can gain. I know for me, and just like coaching and mentoring, and this is, you can even answer this, but for me, when I'm coaching and mentoring, it's a mutual experience. It's not
Absolutely.
one way.
Absolutely.
I'm learning from you. I learn from others, which is why I call this the best talks, because I have learned so much from the best talks. I've
Yeah.
learned from other people. And that goes back to my dissertation, which is tacit knowledge, sharing information through just dialogue from
Mhm.
conversation. Sometimes you don't have to say anything, it's facial expressions, it's a body language. But I definitely want to talk and have you back, Kimberland. And I think there's other areas that we can talk about that will
So
fall
many.
like the other diverse topics. I know we talked about modeling and acting. We've talked about, how do you make your transition from the US and beyond and where you are now as an expat. I will ask as part of our wrap up. I know you talked about you and one of your good friends are talking and kicking around an idea of another podcast.
Mhm.
But tell me what's on the horizon for you. What is new? What's going to happen
Yeah.
next, few days, weeks into the beginning of the first quarter? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, thank you for that question and for this opportunity. It's interesting. I have not interacted with many people in regards to the totality of my story. You are probably the second or third person that I've actually like had a chance in this state of mind to sit and talk with. So I really thank you for this opportunity. I don't take it lightly, and I know it was a lot. And as I was like, yeah, we gonna have to, yeah, it's
We're
a
going to
lot.
have to take it in chunks.
It's a lot. I
Now,
know. That's why I'm like, where do I start, girl? So I wanted to say that. I also want to say two things. One, the community. I and some friends have been talking about that for a while. And it would be interesting to see different researches come together because we have actively been thinking through that and what that looks like. And that's why I mentioned like creating that safe space of healing and sustainability and dependency on each other as opposed to dependency on a capitalistic society. Like it's possible. And I'm so glad you said that because now I know you people. The other thing, so to answer your question, what's on the horizon? So much. So I do want to say I transitioned my life coaching practice into calling myself an intuitive melanated life coach. Intuition and understanding purpose is something that's really big for me. That's what my original life coaching centered around. It's called Discover Your Destiny. And it's really about understanding our spiritual gifts and understanding how God created us outside of a church context. I think a lot of times when we talk about God and we talk about spirituality, especially as Black Americans, a lot of times we put that into the context of church. This has nothing to do with church, and it's everything about the greater kingdom, which is what we were called to. So Discover Your Destiny is all about understanding those spiritual gifts and understanding the unique design. Like God created us on purpose with purpose, everything about us. And for every gift, there's a use and a misuse of the gift. So understanding what that looks like so we don't cause harm to ourselves or others. That then morphed into this intuitive melanated life coaching, because intuition and connecting back to our bodies, I think, is an avenue of freedom for us, because we have had to stay so separate from our bodies and things that we feel for safety in the US. So through my intuitive coaching, it really is about helping us speak to our bodies, understand what that looks like, developing a deeper relationship with God and with our spirit, because God is talking to us all the time. Many of us just don't know that God is talking to us. So then talk to God and tell God how you want God to talk to you. Like, that's why I say God sends me emails, because I be tripping. So I was like, I need you to send me emails because you know me, like you made me, right? My intuitive coaching is really a lot about that, but it also has morphed into a certification program. This past June, I certified 5 new life coaches, and they're going through the process of tweaking like what their offerings look like. But I'm always looking for people who want to impact specifically those who live in melanated bodies and help us to heal from the types of things that we have been through. So that's one thing. Along with that, I just started a vlog. It's called Hi, I'm Kim. My vlog right now lives on my Patreon, and it's because I want to create a safe community, right? And I think that there's so much craziness and crazy people on the internet. And I was like, how do I do this while protecting that group, right? So my Patreon is literally $5 a month, but in that is the opportunity to understand what is happening behind the scenes with me. The reason I call it Hi, I'm Kim is because I'm really getting to understand who I am at this phase in life outside of the boxes that I was stuffed into. I mentioned neurodivergence, and I talked about what that's looking like with rectifying all of these new diagnoses that I really didn't know that I had. And I just thought something was wrong with me. And I've spent so much time like betraying myself because I didn't know that that was the core of me. So talking about that and the healing journey. I also was called to write a book. I don't know the name of it, but I know that it's about my life. And this was just a small snippet, right, of some of the things with a whole bunch of side stories left out. I'm in the process of documenting. I do not have children, so legacy is really important to me. And I do want people to know that I was here when I leave this earth. So I think that it is my responsibility to document my life and to document this process and document the things that are happening, because one day somebody's going to need to look back and read this or listen to this and be like, okay, she did it. She gave me the blueprint and the way to be able to walk through this. She told me about all the landmines that are coming up, right? So I'm working on that. And I don't know if that's going to develop into a documentary. Sometimes I see that. Sometimes I see books. I think it's really a different types of media, because I also paint, which is another level of expression and another level of activism. So big answer to the huge question of what am I doing is, in every medium and avenue that I can, I am leaving my imprint. And I'm doing that in the ways that I feel called in the moment. So whether that be through a podcast, whether that be through going live or whatever. So even on my social media, like it's just all with this creating this story, this little girl from New Orleans that grew up never really understanding why I didn't quite fit in and why I was always just a little bit different, and understanding what it means to actually stand out and be okay with that. Have this deep spiritual connection, knowing that I know what I'm doing, even though everybody else might think I'm crazy, but I know what my instructions were. So I'm walking out those instructions, and I honestly don't really know where it's all leading. And it's weird because I spent a lot of my life being a planner. Right now, I'm just taking instructions almost day by day, and it's really different, but to the faith that is necessary for that. So my prayer lately has been that that God will just continue to show me glimpses, right? The Bible says that God can do exceedingly abundantly more than we could ever ask or think. And the next level of access that I've seen about the doors that God are going to open for me, I understand that it's even bigger than that, because he says greater than we can think or imagine. So if you've shown me that, then that means it's even bigger than that. So I'm trying to hold on to that and keep walking while I am healing. Like I said, the places that people can find like all of this stuff, I feel like I've left breadcrumbs all over everywhere, like Hansel and Gretel.
You
But
did.
I know. So I would say the easiest place to start is probably at Minding My Black Ass Business on all platforms. So that's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, mindingmyblackAssBusiness.com. I have merch. I have journals, I have t-shirts, I have sweatshirts. My podcast lives there. There's only one episode right now, but I think I might release another one in the next couple of weeks. But giving people insight into my mind and the way that my brain works, introducing people to my brain people, which is a whole nother concept and book in the making. So it's a lot. It's a lot. All said that y'all just need to come and be a part of my world. And I forgot to mention TikTok. I just got on TikTok the other day.
I just put the best talks out there. I was like, okay, do my first one and do my second one.
Yeah.
I was afraid of TikTok because
Same.
I'm not
Yeah.
one of those
But
popping.
it's so many different places on
I've
TikTok. And that's what I
learned.
love is like you can really, I have found, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say that I know we gotta
Okay.
go because it's been forever. But being on TikTok, I have found I feel seen because the different things that I've talked about in this healing journey, there are people that are talking about these things in the healing journey on TikTok. And it really just made me want to that much more talk about what it's been like for me, because you feel crazy when you are trying to heal and unpack and unravel and like process. Like you can feel really, really crazy. And the fact of the matter is you're not. Like there are other people who are going through this. They just haven't talked about it or you haven't found them. So I feel like it's my responsibility to be one of those content creators that is there when people are like, I wonder what it's like to leave the US. Oh, I wonder what it's like to escape corporate America. I wonder what it's like to advocate for children. I wonder what it's like to heal from having a full mental break. Like I wonder what that's like. I want to be one of those creators where people can come to and they're like, somebody understands. Somebody gets it. Oh my gosh, I thought I was crazy. I'm not crazy. Like this has happened. That's who I want to be for people. So I'm taking my content creator job a little bit more seriously these days. And even embracing that name because I ran away from that a long time too, because I feel like influencer, content creator, all of that has just gotten so perverted. But I'm going to do it in my way. And I'm going to do it in a way that is going to leave deposits of healing in this world and really help people to be better than I found them, which is my life's mission. So
Yay, I love it. And see, that ties closely to my reoccurring message. Mine came in, multiples too. That was my way of getting messages and etc. And which is to help people help themselves.
yeah.
And helping people help themselves is subjective. And it really depends. And I think the things that I've gone through, just like you, we're almost like the poster children of it. We are the face of it. We can speak on it, which is why people can gravitate to us, which is why
Yeah.
the lady who owns that production saw you because and said, you have that voice, you have
Yeah.
that level of influence. You need to speak, you need to use your platform. And I didn't know you had all that special stuff in you. So this was really great to hear from you from the horse's mouth. You never know how paths cross, and our paths cross through, the school system.
Yeah.
And mine, actually, how it started was I was doing the Great American Teaching at my niece and nephew's school, and I was challenged with how do I connect with kids, because all I do is deal with adults.
Yeah.
And being able to break down cybersecurity, kindergartners and to third graders and all the way up, I'm like, oh shoot, okay, that will be wonderful, because if I can get to the babies, I can get to the kids, I can get to the parents, and if I can get to
Exactly.
the parents, I can get to the caregivers. If I
Yeah.
can get to caregivers, then and it just
Yeah.
constantly, so that to me was my way to you, and being able to speak to kids that people close the book on, and close the doors. I appreciate seeing a sea of people that look like me,
Mm-hmm.
in the classrooms,
Mm-hmm.
girls and boys, mostly girls,
Mm-hmm.
in the classroom, and to hear how cybersecurity can tie into human trafficking or bullying and all that stuff. Who would have thought it would have got us back here on the best
Right.
talks, and
Right.
you being a
Right.
model, and you
Yep.
going through this journey and where you are today. And I kind of see you. We're gonna have to talk later, but on making that transition. And I will ask that question, but and we got 3 minutes before it's 2 hours of talking. So right now you're working for yourself as an expat, and how do you make your income based upon your, I know you talked about having a platform where you have a safe space, but what other things? Because I'm sure people are wondering what
Yeah.
you're doing to pay your rent, your
Right. Right.
mortgage,
Right.
how do you live? So let's
Yeah.
answer that, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay. And let me also say I am open to contracts. Okay. So please do not feel
Okay.
like. So I do a few things. One is educational consulting. So I'm a school improvement specialist and I still work with school leaders, school district leaders. A few things. Primarily, social emotional learning is usually the place that I enter. So that's dealing with self awareness, self management, social awareness, building positive relationship skills, and making responsible decisions are the pillars of social emotional learning. So I use that as a way to connect with people, right? Because many schools and school districts are not safe places. So I consult with school leaders on how to create safe places for all of their stakeholders, for their students, their families, their teachers, the staff, and community members. Also, in that is I help bridge the gap between academics and behavior. A lot of people think about those things separately, but not understanding that both impact each other. It's a both and type situation. So I work with school leaders on that. Also do leadership coaching and thought partnering. So sometimes it really is just, I'm really good at the details of what's happening, right? So you give me the idea and then I'm really great at asking the questions. Well, what about this? And what does that look like? And what does that sound like? And how are you going to do that? So that procedural logistical part of that. So I do that as well. And also host spaces called think tanks where people can bring ideas and then they can basically pick my brain, if you will, about what that looks like to bring that idea into fruition. I am also a life coach. So I do my Discover Your Destiny life coaching program as well as intuitive melanated life coaching certification program. So that's going to be coming back up in the new year around March. And I have a new offering that I will be giving again of how people can escape from the US. I'm not sure what it's called yet, but really is about the mindset more so than it is the logistics. So I actually was just sketching out like the different modules the other day about what that's going to look like. So that is another offering. Also host, right? So I host shows or panel discussions, what have you. Like I'm very good at carrying conversations. I can talk about whatever. So whether that be hosting a talk show, a podcast, being on podcasts, talking about my life, engaging with somebody else about theirs, anything basically that has to do with mental health and mental health advocacy. I also do those types of appearances and speaking as well in the fields of education, as well as anything that I have talked about along this colorful journey of my life. There is probably some type of offering for that. But most importantly, I just want to be this conduit for people to help people understand who they are. So if you are wondering in your mind, you're like, there has to be more to life than this. I know that I'm not fulfilling my full and complete purpose. I know that I should be doing more. Then I need you to go ahead and reach out to me because the fact of the matter is that you probably are. And understanding what God has designed you for is like the master key to unlocking whatever that next level is. And that is what I specialize in helping people to do. So any of those avenues would be a way for you to work with me and connect with me.
Awesome. Thank you again, Kimberland.
Thank
I
you.
truly appreciate having this opportunity to speak with you and to have people learn more about you. I admired you when we first connected, and then when you responded to my Facebook post doing a gift to just interview people, lessons learned, tips
Yeah.
of trade, things that's related to fashion, business, cybersecurity, or other diverse topics. You volunteer, you step forward versus step back. You know, some people like and keep moving, but you
Yeah.
step forward, not only like, but you did step forward. And here we are a couple of
Absolutely.
months later because of life happening and
Yeah.
boo-boos and the emails and stuff like that.
Listen, time is time. God's timing is perfect. So
Ev-
you
Exactly.
know what's so interesting? When you had first reached out to me, life was crazy. Like I was in the middle of trying to figure out this transition and all of that. And it was a lot. So this happened when it was supposed to happen, right? And
Exactly.
space is created for it. And I also want you to know I'm gonna need to have you on my platforms as
Okay.
well, because you have a very unique perspective as well. So be looking out for that
Okay.
too. Okay.
I
I'm
got
about
you.
creating a universe. I think
Yeah.
that to this community concept that we were talking about, like, I think if we can create a universe of people and introduce people to each other and like put people on, it's
That's
like, I don't know why we
perfect.
not doing that and we all not winning. Right. So thank you. And
Yeah,
also be looking
exactly. That's
to
why I'm
be on mine.
like-minded. These my people,
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
building that community. And that
Yeah.
is what I wanted to do because and that goes back to the purpose of the best talks is because I want to increase awareness on various things and then inspire, dreamers and
Yeah.
getting you to transition from just being a dreamer in your head to a dream catcher,
Yes.
uplifting you, empowering you, and then also people that just gonna sit back and just gather information. Somebody just sit back, quiet, like how we all do,
Hmm.
sit back, and those are information seekers. And I
Yeah.
want to uplift them. I want to give them the information. I want to connect them to the people, that's in these different categories this platform has, which is focused on fashion, business, cybersecurity, and other diverse topics. And we touched on all of
All of that.
by default. So that's why it's long and I welcome this and we will have Kimberland back. I think that it will be in the best interest of everyone because it can go different ways. I'm
Yeah.
sure if there's a person that can relate to one of many topics that we've brought up, definitely like the page, share the page, hit the notification on YouTube so you'll know when I'm posting and also on podcasts. I have recently lost it on Spotify and just got to TikTok just this week, just a couple of days ago.
Come on, TikTok.
Uh, so find us, and I will definitely put Kimberland Jackson's information. She's going to give me her website, the podcast. I definitely want you to follow and like her stuff as well. And definitely, if you want to engage with her from life coaching, I know that I am. I'm going to find out her price schedule and all that stuff because I need that, and I think I'm at a point where I need that extra help. And there's nothing wrong with asking
Yeah.
for help or saying or admitting that you need help, even in the mental health. When you need a break, and Ashley, be fully transparent as I shut this down. I am right now on FMLA for mental health to take care of myself. It's rare that I step away from phones, devices, even though I'm using it, but
Hmm.
I removed those apps for connection to my
Yeah.
job because I needed it for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And so this is where I'm using this time to work on me and also figure out how I'm going to design my life to be more mobile, to go back to being a corporate escapee.
Yes.
So more to come on the best toss, and you will see Kimberlyn again. And thank you for being here. I appreciate your time, Kimberlyn. Thank you for spending 2+ hours with
Absolutely.
me. And I hope you get to the park to enjoy the sun and be outside. It's cold right now where I am, but I'm gonna be in the sun in a little bit too. And thank you for being here.
Thank
Like
you.
and subscribe to all of the platforms that you will see on the screen and also in the description. So thank you for being here and take care.
Thanks, guys. Bye.